Welcome to Honestly Rated. Today we'll be talking about your favorite cobblestone made man, Rubble Rouser. Rubble Rouser is a Skylander that I have honestly not been really wanting to do. Not because I have any disdain towards him, not because I hate him, mainly because I find him pretty ugly. I think he's one of the ugliest Skylanders out there. But just because he's ugly doesn't mean he can't have good gameplay. And because of that, I'm going to put that difference aside and we're going to take a look at his gameplay and design to really see how good he can be and maybe even teach me the important lesson of never judging a book by its cover. But before we jump into the juicy stuff, let me give you the lore of Rubble Rouser because it's honestly kind of weird. So Rubble Rouser comes from a race of people that just kind of mine through mountains and ground by eating the rocks, which, to be fair, isn't that like kind of like cannibalism, right? Like he is a rock person himself. Doesn't really make much sense there. I guess they're not living. What makes the rocks living? I don't know. Whatever the fuck. Nonetheless, they went on their way, just doing the old thing. Rubble Rouser is a guy that's like, hey, maybe eating mouthful of rock isn't like the smartest thing. It still tastes good, so I still want to do it, but let me use my hammer and drill instead. Kind of came good at it. Other people didn't really want to listen to him until some bunch of evil rock lords came by, kind of trapped them under a mountain. Rubble Rouser showed how to beat the shit out of them, and the people in that tribe said, hey, you have some good skills there, buddy. Thank you for showing me how to use a hammer and drill. You should go find the Skylanders. I'm pretty sure they like you. And they did. So he became a Skylander. That's pretty cool. Still kind of weirded out with the rock thing, though. One other thing I want to say is that if you want to see your Skylander on Honestly Rated and next, all you got to do is leave it down in the comments and maybe you'll be next. If you don't know which one's already done, there is a playlist on my channel that I'll put in the description if you want to go see more. And again, just check and see which ones I've done. And if you want to see more in the future, subscribing would help me the most. But these do also come out every single Saturday. But if they don't, usually on Sunday if I have a busy week, just like this one. But with all that said and done now, let's go see how much of a shake Rubble Rouser can really make. Starting us off, we have Hammer Swing and Deep Dig, which is lore accurate, let me just say. And these are pretty good moves. Hammer Swing is a simple 1, 2, 3, and it does pretty solid damage. But the cool thing about it that they don't really market from the beginning is that you can charge it up. And charging it up does wonders. Now, the third base move that you hit with this hammer does a spin, which is pretty cool. But the cooler thing about it, though, is that it does knockback. And that's really fucking good, especially for a very fast charge. It is not long at all. And it really sets up pretty well with the secondary move, which is our digging. Digging allows us to go into the ground, pop back up like a dirty little Weezer. We're basically playing Pop Goes, but we're the Weasel and the hammer user. And because of it, since we go underground, we can't get hit. So you can basically become Ultra Instinct Goku if you can just really time your attacks well. There's no way to stay under the ground longer, at least for now. And because of it, you might still get hit if you pop back up at the wrong time, or maybe you have a lot of enemies around you hitting at different times. And another thing about Rubble Rouser is that he does have that weird knockback kind of situation where when hitting an enemy, he kind of slows them down a bit. But with all those kind of minor setbacks, I do think these two moves are pretty great, and he is pretty strong. So honestly, upgrades can only kind of help him here. Going to the top half first, we have Tools of the Trade and Happy Hammering. Happy Hammering is just a damage increase, which, you know, doesn't hurt anybody, and it actually does do a pretty good increase. Sometimes when you hear damage increase, they only do it like 5 to 6. This one did it like from like 15 points, so that's actually a pretty good damage increase. Then Tools of the Trade is something that, well, it's kind of 50-50 on. It is a solid move that does really solid area damage, which is just us bonking enemies on top of the head with it. But there are some defactors to it that kind of leads me to maybe wanting more upgrades for it first. For one, it is a slow base move. From the hit stun thing that happens with Rubble Rouser to it just honestly being a slow move that you can't really jump out of, it is pretty risky to use. The other thing too is that its damage output is the exact same as if you just did a fully charged up hammer from our base move, which is safer and also adds on the extra knockback. So realistically, what is the hammer really giving you in this situation? Not a lot, sadly. It does just really blend into just the base primary move. It's just a faster way, I guess, of doing it. But at the same time, charging up your normal hammer doesn't really take that much time. It's pretty quick in that sense. So realistically, right now, it's not doing a lot, but I can see potential with it within a couple upgrades maybe. So let's just go into them since we don't really have a lot of upgrades for the top half anyways, same with the bottom. Ending off the primary path, we have a drill head, and other than it just making our hammer look absolutely gorgeous, it allows us to have a hold down effect with Tools of the Trade. And it is honestly a good one, in my opinion, probably not too good for higher level gaming or nightmares or whatever the fuck. Reason being is that it is a very close and personal move that does constant chip damage. It does 30 chip damage, which isn't anything to scoff at, and even that slowdown effect that happens when hitting enemies applies here, and honestly kind of works, because my rationale is that you can kind of foretell when an enemy is going to attack you, and you can stop before it ends up happening. And if it didn't happen like that, it could be a lot more risky than it already is. So honestly, the slowdown wasn't that bad. It actually does kind of help. And I do like Drill Head. But again, it's very risky. It's a very short move in the sense that you need to be close to an enemy to do this. You need to be close to an enemy. If you're not, it's not going to hit, and you're just going to look like a dumbass. And pulling out the hammer from the drill and jumping out of it does take a little bit of time. Again, that's why I like that slowdown. So if you don't stop in time, you'll probably get hit. But other than that, I do find it to be a pretty solid move that maybe if they just give an upgrade in the secondary path, which there's only 2 upgrades, if they give it like a bigger shockwave effect, I think it can even be even better. So let's go see, and maybe that'll actually be a thing. Onto the drill pitcher path, which allows us to throw our hammer with Nailed It, and also a damage upgrade towards it with Sledgehammer. Now this is an upgrade, to make it short and sweet, a pretty terrible one. I don't like this one, and I really don't know how you can if you've seen the bottom path, but let me give you the reasons why I don't like it. It does give him a projectile, which in theory should be beneficial, because any melee attacker having a just range option in general does help for those very dire needs of low health and not really wanting to get close to enemies. But it really just doesn't work in his favor. For one, it is pretty piss poor in damage. It is the weakest thing he can do comparatively to mostly anything. I'm pretty sure it's on par with even like him digging down, which again is probably actually the weakest thing there. So in that sense, not very damageable, very weak. Second thing is that it is only applicable to the 3rd swing that is charged. If you don't know, you can charge up every single swing he does, his 1st, his 2nd, and his 3rd, but the 3rd one is the only one that actually gets this nice throw, which I guess kind of makes sense. I guess the 3rd one is the most powerful, the one that would make the most sense for him to actually be able to throw the thing, but at the same time, it just makes the move a little bit worse, since I can't do it every single time I just charge up my hammer. If it was every single time I charge up my hammer, which I do often, then yes, I can give it a pretty good pass and tell you why it's actually somewhat kind of good. I would actually enjoy it that way. But that's really the thing that really sells it for me. Then the last thing that also kind of does it no justice is that for some enemies, if they don't initially die towards the move, it will completely break the hammer, which in itself, again, if you're having to charge up to the 3rd one, which again, you don't have to go through the first 2, you can go one swing, charge, but again, time is still ticking, so having all that time to go there, throwing at an enemy, and it just completely breaking, and not even hitting enemies behind it if it's like a larger group, which maybe you would want a projectile to do, it just kind of sucks, especially a big projectile like it, which in some other cases would just be a move that just kind of flies through enemies. It's just a move that isn't that good. And again, the bottom path is going to be practically the same use, but in a way better format. So let's go check that one out. The name of the bottom path is called Excavator, and this allows us to throw rubble from our hammer with rock shards and gem quality. Gem quality just being a damage upgrade. Rock shards is the main thing to talk about, and it is fundamentally better than the fucking hammer in any sense, any type of day, no matter what type of way you're feeling, it is always better. The reason why is that, for one, it shoots out multiple, so it's going to hit multiple enemies at one time, and even though it doesn't go through enemies, it's still going to hit multiple of them at the same fucking time. There's no like, is it or is it not? It's just, it will if there is a lot of enemies spread around, right? Then, second thing, is that even though it's doing less damage, it makes sense. I am throwing multiple fucking things at enemies. That makes sense, they're going to do less damage than the fucking hammer, but the hammer just does it so shittily, and I could do 2 of these before I probably can throw 2 of the hammers out at the same time. So damage kind of adds up in the same pace, and this one again, you get to throw it so much faster. I can do the base move of Tools of a Trade and throw out rocks. If I do the rumbling of the ground one, the drill hammer one, I will still throw rocks. I don't have to always do the drill hammer. I don't only have to do Tools of the Trade. The rocks will always come flying out at the end of the day, and that is what fundamentally I find the best. I can just keep throwing it out over and over. If I need a projectile, this is the one I would always go for. Even though it's doing less damage, I can throw it out a lot more frequently, and even though the move itself is semi-slow, I still think that I will be able to run away from enemies, still be able to do the thing afterwards, and be fine. I can potentially still not get hit. You know, it just depends on where I'm doing it, at what pace, and what, you know, everything, all other fucking factors, whatever. It is just fundamentally better than the top one. I think if the top one just had more of like a damage to it, and if it was just allowing me to do it to any type of move that I charged, or like for the primary attack option, and maybe even did a little bit of knockback, because again, I'm throwing a fucking hammer at your face. You will probably fly backwards, especially how fucking big it is. Whatever, it's fine. We don't have to go that crazy. Nonetheless, bottom path is the way to go. Excavator on top, the hammer, eat shit and die. Other than that, let's go check out the quote-unquote soul gem for the top half of Rubble Rouser, the Rubble part of Rouser. Last thing to talk about is Obsidian Skin, which is a pretty simple one. It just allows us to take less damage, which is pretty good for Rubble Rouser, a character that is fundamentally always in front of every single person's face. That's obviously a pretty cool thing to see. So, yeah, not much to talk about here, other than he turned black. That's it. So, on to the bottom half of them, and then see how well they can really do with the tunneling, because tunneling is already pretty strong. So, giving it a lot of upgrades, especially if it goes kind of wacko, might actually be pretty fucking cool. So, let's go down a little bit more under. First up, for the bottom half, we have child labor with the miners. We get to pull out babies out of the ground and use them to our sacrificial well to punch things next to us. It is a pretty nice upgrade, especially since you're probably going to be using this move a lot, especially in the top half, not really showcasing it too much. It is a very beneficial move. Again, you get to dodge moves, like if you can time it well, so it's pretty good in that sense. So now it just having a beneficial use and just throwing out these little babies and they can just go punch things, that's pretty cool. There are some negatives to it though, and that is, for one, they're fucking idiots, right? They're babies and they do have the fucking mind of one. They are very dumb when it comes to trying to hit things. They don't do a lot of damage. It's 6 chip damage. Is that really a lot? No, they can beat up a Chompy really fast, but other things still are going to take a couple of hits. But again, you get up close to some fucking enemies and they just stand there like a dumbass. They're like, well, what are these guys? Well, I don't know what to do here. And they don't hit anything. So, other than them just being really fucking stupid and not doing a lot of damage, it is just a kind of beneficial thing there. I'm like, okay, I'm glad to see you guys go working hard out there. But other than that, whatever. They do last a semi-good amount of time. And they're pretty chill, I guess. They're nonchalant. So, yeah. Last up is the Earthly Fortitude and Tunnel Expedition. The first one gives us more health, which is good. Rubble Rouser, again, very close and personal. Probably get hit a lot of times. Very nice to make sure that that damage output doesn't happen too much. And if it does, you get to live a little bit longer. But other than that, we have a completely new move where when going into the ground, if you charge it up long enough, you will be able to use your feet to come back out and drill people's assholes into a new one. And in short, it is pretty good, but pretty fucking risky. It is a move that when coming out does launch enemies backwards, does 100 damage, which is pretty solid. It's like at most a single swipe with his hammer, which isn't a lot, but at the same time you have to bring in the factors that you can now sit underground. You can hold it for a while. So let's say an enemy's going to attack you. You maybe did it a little too early. You can just sit down there, chill a little bit until they finish. And since you're not on the top and maybe you're not playing with other people, there is no enemies to come hit you. And they'll just kind of stand there like idiots and just kind of wait until you pop back up. So you can kind of sit down there until they force you to. Again, the risky part about it, though, is that when coming up, it is a very slow burn to fucking go and do anything else. It takes a while from the initial hit stun from hitting enemies to it just honestly taking a good amount of time, because he loves to just fucking flex his big ass drills and just hang them in the air for a good amount of time. And you'll probably get hit if you don't hit the enemies that are there, or maybe you have too big of a crowd by the point where when you come up, you don't hit everything. So risky in that sense. If you just play your cards right, you'll be fine, and it is a pretty solid upgrade in that sense. I like knockback, so having that at least gives it a little bit more benefit. If it didn't have knockback, I think there would be a lot more of a different question. But since there is, I think there's a lot of benefits to this move, and even just benefits from it, just being able to hold and sit down there for as long as you want. I find that to be super cool, and it can be utilized in many ways to just help Rubble Rouser and not taking damage. One other thing that I almost forgot is that when you do this move, no mini miner comes out. You have to do the base move if you want a mini miner, and I find that to be very weird. You're doing the same fucking thing. You're drilling a hole in the ground, a big one at that. A mini miner should just pop out of the whoever the fuck's down there. Whoever's pregnant is just birthing out these babies. They should just let one come through. I don't know why they don't. Really weird, kind of annoying, but not as egregious because it's not super crazy in that sense like the hammer one was. So it's stupid, but whatever, I guess. I still find it a little annoying. Onto the Boulders path, which has Boulder Toss and so bold, and I really like this path. It actually helps a lot with what I was just talking about, with the feetsies. Because what this allows us to do is that when we're in the ground, we can throw up miniature boulders or like what they look like, fucking Cocoa Puffs, and it'll hit enemies as we are just sitting down there. You can sit down there for a good amount of time, so a lot of Cocoa Puffs can come out. If you have nothing on the board, no teammate or anything, enemies will just stand completely still. It's not something like they'll run away from you, so you can just sit there and keep hitting them. And it's just free damage. It's a free damage at the factor of not being able to take any damage at the same time. Who doesn't like that? And it does help with that fact that since this move is pretty long-winded at the end and might get you hit, you might be able to kill a couple things before, and you will completely negate that chance of you getting hit. So that's a pretty 2 good thumbs ups for me. I like this path a lot. And it's going to take a little bit for that bottom path to really shine how bright as this one did. Because, again, this one's pretty fucking good and helps a major way. So, the next one's going to deal with the little guys. So, let's see how they deal with those guys. On to Miner Foreman, where we get more mighty miners. With Minercraft, which is probably what every single Minecraft YouTuber thinks, over 1 million subscribers. And On Strike, which allows them to do a little bit more damage. Now, this one, it's like 11 damage now. So, not a lot of damage, but we can have up to 4. That's the main perk about this one. We have 4 mighty miners. And now, again, I'm not debating on the Skylander on being how beneficial for other swappers, since, you know, that is a key thing. But realistically, in my head, with just Rubble Rouser himself, I really think the top path is still beneficial. I don't think this one is bad in any sense. The mighty miners are still very fucking stupid, though. They can't see like 2 feet in front of them, so you still have that problem with them. But having 4 of them that does like 11 damage at a kind of semi-rapid pace that can just kind of run around and hit multiple things, if they go hit those multiple things, is pretty cool. Just simple chip damage. But at the same time, the top path kind of does the same thing in the same type of fashion. Now, even though it's more directed into one place, if you're not playing with other people, you're probably going to have every enemy surrounding you anyway, so that damage output's going to be there. It does 22 instead of 11, so it's basically 2 mighty miners fighting at the same time, every single pebble that drops down from the ground, and you get a nice explosive finisher that does 100 damage at the end, and you don't have to keep replenishing your mighty miners if they go away. So, yeah, I don't think the bottom path is anything bad. It maybe is a lot safer than the top path, than having to be very close to enemies and just instead just kind of trying to have the mighty miners do things comparatively to you having to be in front of them. But other than that, it's a pretty okay one. I don't know what else they could have really done with these little dudes, but maybe just make them fucking smarter because they're just so stupid. But other than that, that's it. We have one last thing to go look at, and that is the bottom half soul gem. So let's go take a look. And for the soul gem, we have Pop Rock, which is honestly just more of a defense for the top path and why I think it's better. Pop Rock allows us to go in that same state where we're underground and throw a big Cocoa Puff right at the enemies. And it is really good because, for one, it does pop up, so any enemies that gets hit by it will go flying into the sky and not be able to hit you. And it honestly just creates it to be a lot more of a safer move. And it does pretty solid damage, doing 87. So anything you don't hit that's next to you, it will probably get hit by this one. It seemed like it for most of the times I've hit it, even to enemies that go flying forward. It will hit the nearest enemies towards me, so if I missed any enemies behind me and nothing like that, it will hit them instead of going for the enemy that I hit initially. So, making a creator's way safer creator space. And if you go with the top path, you'll probably be doing this move a lot, and you can just sit there, do the rocks from the beginning, do a bunch of chip damage with the 22, have the big meteor hit any midi that's near you, and you'll probably kill them on base difficulty, base form, base everything. And, you know, maybe in the topper pass it wouldn't be as beneficial, or it wouldn't like kill him instantly, but you know what I mean. It's still very nice with the pop-up and anything like that. So I think it's a very good one. I think it just creates more of a demand to pick with the top one, just because it will probably be underground for longer comparatively if you use the mighty miners, because you can only do that with the base pop-up. You can't hold down and get more of them. So yeah, that's what I think. But with all that said and done, we have looked at every single move, and now it's time for me to give my rating. So let me go take a look at everything again and make sure I get every single rock polished and really make sure my mindset is definitive. Alrighty, so after doing what I said, polishing my rocks and really making sure my mindset is ready, I'm ready to give you my rating. But first, before we do it, let me just say, if you made it through this far, please consider subscribing. Again, it would help me a lot. But alrighty, here is my rating on Rubble Rouser. What I'm going to give him is a solid, rock solid 4 out of 5. I think he's actually a pretty fun character. I think everything he has going from is pretty nice. I like the damage output he does. I like the going underground. The Mighty Miners are pretty funny. The name itself is just pretty fucking stupid. I find that whole thing pretty cool. I find a lot of them pretty fun. I really think the things that really bring him down is for just kind of the paths. I don't know what about them, but like the hammer ones, just kind of like, what the fuck? That one is just like the most misstep ever. And the bottom one with the Mighty Miners, even though not being bad, they're still pretty weird. And just for like the weird things of just not being able to do the hammer throw with the first 2 charges, which again kind of makes sense. I get it. He does like the whole swing around as the third thing. I can see that. But like when playing as a game like that, it doesn't make the character better in that sense. It just kind of makes you annoyed that you have to keep doing the same third swing and then you can do it. If you didn't really kill the enemy, I don't think you're probably gonna fucking do it. Like you'll probably kill him then. Like that's like the whole thing, and that's what kind of brings it down to a 4. But a 4 is not a bad place to be. It's a pretty solid Skylander, and honestly, for him being how I said in the beginning, where I just didn't really care for him, I didn't really like him or find him that good looking, so I didn't really play him that much. I might actually start playing him just kind of casually. I think he's pretty fun, and I really like the hammer swings. I just really do. They feel meaty. Even like that little slowdown effect just kind of makes them feel more meaty, and it's just kind of fun playing as them, whacking people. Another thing too that I guess I could put in here too is like, without the upgrades for the hammer, like the tools of trade, it's practically pretty fucking useless. It's the same thing if you just charge your hammer naturally. I don't know why the damage output was the same. It maybe could have just been a little bit nicer. I really don't know what they could have done, but I think the upgrades itself kind of fixed that issue, so I'm not going to hold it against them. If it really was that big of an issue, I probably would have put them lower, but it's really not. I think it picks itself up with the upgrade, with being able to throw it, even though I find that really shit, and also the rocks itself. And I think that's what really kind of saved the hammer, because I used it a lot more in that sense comparatively to its base use, and also its tunneling ability. So, yeah, again, that's all I got for you for Honestly Rated today. That is the honest rating of Rubble Rouser. Tell me who you want to see next in the comments. Check out my playlist if you want to see more of these. And again, consider subscribing if you watched all the way through, or maybe you see yourself coming back to these videos all the time and you're not subscribed yet. Helps me a lot. Keeps me going, because I love seeing that number grow. But other than that, thank you for watching all the way through. I hope to see you for the next Honestly Rated next Saturday. Maybe check out my other stuff that's on my channel. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Peace.